All right, so we'll go ahead and uh, get it started, and you know, willfully people will join in, as the conversation flows. But yeah, so we want to start by um, just want to introduce, this topic of loneliness in a pandemic, um, as it's a vital um, happening, right now you know, to all of us. We're dealing with, um, COVID and having to restructure, our perspective on life and relationships, with others and, our loved ones and of course ourselves, So before we get into it, um, I'm gonna start off with a poem that I wrote. It's called "A Million Voices," that ties in to this topic. So I'll go ahead and just flow. A million voices, one rings out. A troubled time, what we in now. Troubled youth trying to find clout, like the sun adjusting to the dim clouds. Inspires lines in a pen. Some way, somehow, some later, and some now. Who holds the key to a lockdown? What key can be pulled out? Paid down for the upper room view. Kind of condo, wise convo, and control being bold. In a time of derision, it seems there's no other decision. Uh-oh, deterred by opposition moving in the distance, hindered by hatred. What you've been given can't just give in. Can't you stop sinning? Can't you stop sinning? Feel the hunger pains and malnutrition. G's and sing. A million voices, one rings out. A troubled time, what we in now. Troubled youth trying to find clout. A sunny day, but just lit clouds. Inspires lines in a pen. Some way, somehow, some later, and some now. All right, so that was my piece that I'm going to tie in. And I'm going to tie in to, our topic, loneliness in the pandemic. So thank you for joining us. All right. So, some of the questions, that I pondered, as myself, I've felt, at times, lonely, you know what I mean, in this, you know, in this time, in this troubled time where we have, this COVID, disease. There's many things going on. It's not just COVID, but that's something that's affecting all of us, no matter what region you're in. It's having an effect on, what's in the stores, what's available to us, our resources, technology. Things have rapidly changed, since our introduction to it, to this pandemic. So something that came across my mind was, what does one do when feeling lonely, and there's a potential for like attracting COVID, potentially, on top of all the other dangers that were already in existence prior to the pandemic. you know So, should you just wait it out? There's some people that say, hey, if we just, things are getting back to normal, they're opening things back up, certain places, you don't have to wear a mask anymore, so things are going back to normal, right? Well, I beg to differ. Uh, but another question, that kind of brings, that kind of was on my mind was like, seeing how so many breakups and divorces, have happened, since the pandemic started, as if it wasn't, the divorce rate wasn't high enough, prior to it, but it seems to be just a real elevated number, since then, and even I personally know some persons that have chosen that route to get a divorce and break up, you know, and who just feel unfulfilled, in their relationships and their mission, you know. So it brings me to like a question of like, were you fulfilled prior to the pandemic? Were you lonely prior to this case of emergency, right? So when I looked at myself, in those times of feeling lonely, I noticed that there was a difference, when I leaned upon the knowledge that I have been introduced to, and finding that comfort, and I'm not alone, even though physically, there may be times where I'm physically alone and there's nobody physically around me. I have children, and there's people around physically, but at times you may want to connect in certain ways that are not available. For instance, I'm a poet, obviously, right? So there's the traditional ways in which I used to perform are not available, you know and to some extent there was some fulfillment in that, to an extent, right? Just expressing that part of myself, right? But it wasn't like total fulfillment. But now, since I don't have that, it's like, what now? What do I do now? Where do I go now? To fill those gaps of myself that I'm not able to express in the manner that I would like, and connect with the people that I would like to connect with in the manner that I know how to connect, right? So something that helped me was Kuji Chakalia, self-determination. So I found that when we establish that relationship with Yah, and establish that connection with the soul, we start to take on the spirit of truth, and anything that surrounds truth is an illusion. So there's truth, and then you have illusions, so those parts of myself that were undiscovered, that were say lost, in translation, that I didn't know how to express, and connect, and with others, is in translation, is lost. That's how I felt, right? But in essence, what I learned is that the connection that I was really looking for was to connect with the soul. That's what I was truly yearning for. And self-determination is not just knowing what you like or what you don't like, but it's actually knowing the destinations and limitations of oneself. So like the historical context of who you are, and the real you at the end of the tunnel, right? So we were created with purpose and intent. So when we align ourselves to the Creator's will, then we will be able to consciously create, right? And no matter what, we're always creating. So we unconsciously sometimes unfortunately create those mild feelings of neglect, or disappointment, anger, fear, inadequacy, we create these situations and manifest these situations and manifest these relationships, with others, unconsciously, because we haven't aligned ourselves properly, with that conscious creation, you know. So if we discard the illusions of the ego, and attachments to the foreign ideology, of what and who we are, then we can appropriately attach ourselves, to that which is real, the real you. Who are you really, at the soul level? So, that spiritual connection, is something that we are yearning for, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. So, on my journey, that's been helpful for me, so as to, not lean on, just the physical, representations, or the physical and material things that can point me in false directions, and sometimes manifest, relationships or connections out of fear and anxiety, and come up with, those negative results, because you still at the end of the day not fulfilled. You still feel lonely, still don't have that real genuine connection with yourself and with others, so that solvent, for the unknown variables, of ourselves, right, that would otherwise be left to like rationalize, based on ego and feelings, that's it's inconsistent and unreliable, when we use our ego and our feelings to, try and filter out which way is right, which direction we should go, what we should do. Our feelings can be very unreliable, and inconsistent, versus, leaning upon, knowledge, leaning upon knowledge and truth, and of course, like wisdom would help us to filter out, that knowledge, on what works and what doesn't, what's real and what isn't, and then we get that proper understanding of, what's true, so an example that I thought of, that you may can relate to, as in, I have children, so, and of course I was a child at one point as well, right? So as an infant, some, children may heed like the warning, that their parents may give them to say, hey, don't put your hands on the stove because it's hot, right? So over time, in their development, they observe that, items are combined, and then, a dish is created, like soup, mama just made some soup, now that first time that, you tell them, they may still decide to put their hands on the stove, right, and burn themselves, right? But then they have that wisdom of, okay, I shouldn't put my hand there because it's hot, right? But they don't really have, a full knowledge of what is all up there. They just know that it's hot up there, right? And there's possible danger. I could hurt myself, right? So at a more developed level, they can observe the other variables, and amounts needed to follow the steps of, cooking that concoction to perfection, and then, for some, cooking just isn't a gift that, that you have. So, not all of us can cook, and that's fine, right? But you have that experience and that understanding, at a variety of levels, right? So, you have an infant, amount of knowledge, right? Where you just know, okay, there's a potential danger. Then you know, okay, there's maybe herbs. Maybe the next stage there's herbs, or there's water, there's things mixed up there, but you don't know, to what degree. you know and then at a more developed level, you may actually, start being able to read the directions and take the directions from your mother to get that learning lesson of, okay, look, this is what you need, this is the formula in order to get this desired result, right? So at that point, the child, or the teenager, or what have you, would then be able to actually, cook, or concoct, to have at least an opportunity to, impute that knowledge and wisdom that was given to them, to develop, to develop and take that and develop that, that understanding of, how to get that desired result, you know um, so that's what my experience, has been. There's been times where, I didn't know what it is that I was supposed to, do and go, and leaning upon, the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, that um, I've been able to ascertain, within the, our new experience. It's been, very helpful and very revealing, and helped me in times when I felt lost, and, not certain of, like, what is my purpose here? Like, what is, when these tribulations and trials come about, they show us, like, okay, they may highlight some things, highlight some of our dysfunctions and impurities, but they were already there. you know we were already looking, we were already needing direction, but maybe they just highlighted the fact that we need it ever so, it's ever so needed now, promptly. So, I'll open up the mic, if any of the, other persons want to jump in and, just add to the cipher, feel free to do so.
Peace, peace. Alright. Can you hear me?
Peace. Yes, indeed.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, man. I thought it was a timely topic. Dealing with the aspect of loneliness, especially at the time that we're in. And um, you had touched on something earlier dealing with divorce rates going up,
Hmm.
which I thought was really interesting. And um, I thought it was interesting because we typically don't have as deep an understanding or understanding on the relationships that we form as we think we do.
Hmm.
Sometimes we're like the person is like a passerby in the hustle and bustle of Western life. You
Hmm.
know, you see them when you come home, or you see them before you go out to work, but you don't necessarily spend time with them. Unless it's like you actually make a special occasion of it. You know, and sometimes we may not realize that this person has um, this person has a lot of things going on with them that they may not necessarily feel comfortable with telling you, or they may keep to themselves until you're in a situation like in these lockdowns or these pandemics where now you're in close proximity with this person for a longer time than you're used to, and certain things may come out that they may have been able to hold in for a certain period of time. So you may have these divorces happening because there was something already bubbling beneath the surface, and now it's going to come out because it, you may feel trapped in the same space with these people. So that was something that really piqued my interest when you were speaking just now. But also, the relationships that you spoke of that people form, even having a relationship with yourself, you know, as opposed to being by yourself. You know, Chief had spoken about being with yourself, you know, enjoying your own company. And you learn a lot about yourself as well, because you may spend a longer amount of time with yourself than you usually do. You're not distracting yourself with some of the things that may be liabilities in your life, or some of the things that may just be obligation. You know, I can't spend time with myself because I got to pay this bill. I can't spend time with myself because I have to make sure that I meet this appointment, or I go out and spend enough time with friends. Now that you're alone with yourself, you're going to have to deal with some of the things that you may have been putting off, or you may have been taking on a lot of stuff just to, you know, distract yourself from what you should be focusing on. You know, so both of those aspects of this phenomenon, this lockdown, has brought about, you know, has brought to the surface and made more obvious to us. They're both very interesting um, pieces to speak on. So yeah, man, I just wanted to add that piece to the bill.
Indeed, yeah. Give thanks for your share. Yeah, and there were a couple of things that that you mentioned that stood out that I want to build on. Yeah, man. The lockdown is serious, right? And regardless of what a person's personal belief may be in regards to contracting the disease or not, like you said, those the parameters have changed, right, and what you're able to do externally, right, so that we can feel locked down in our body. We can feel trapped, you know trapped in our skin, you know what I mean, and wanting to run to those escape mechanisms, right, different forms of addiction, and all of us have experienced some type of addiction, no matter if it's sugar, salt, um, uh, of some form. So I'm sure like everybody can relate, to what that may feel like. But you know, um, there's a certain type of mentality, that one has to take on in order to beat those addictions, and face oneself, and it's not easy. It's not something to where you know um it's varying levels, of course, of how far you are removed from connecting with the soul and connecting with yourself. But we have varying degrees of which we make those decisions of, like, okay, I know this is bothering me, but am I going to address it? you know so you know yeah, the more that we distract ourselves, the harder it is, to confront those demonic spirits and entities, and when those the external situation changes, it may force us, to be put in a room just with ourselves, and we have no other choice but to just confront those demons. So that's something that really stood out to me, and that I really see happening with a lot of us. And for some of us, it for some of us, we may have made certain choices to confront those demons, post pandemic, prior to the pandemic starting, you know but it's certainly a journey, and journey for us to um our seriousness of taking that journey, is by confronting oneself, confronting the ego, confronting those demons, and reconnecting with that that higher self-awareness. So I'll go ahead and open it up. I don't want to hog the mic, so if anyone else want to jump in there, feel free to do so.
Peace, peace. I definitely thought this, or think this is a relevant topic, and what I found interesting is how people chose to deal with, the pandemic. There's some people who really capitalized on it, and then there's other people that really had a difficult and hard time. So I just thought it was really interesting, the different perspectives and the different ways that people chose to. Um, take control of, what's happening, something that's most didn't have any control over, but there were certain people that was like, okay, I'm going to make the best out of this. And, I see a positive in it, whereas those, other people, they just had a really difficult time, dealing with it. So I just wanted to share that. Give thanks.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Especially you look at the flip side, there may be people who have already been having a hard time even before the pandemic. So they may have been dealing with clinical depression or various other mental illnesses, or they may have already been in an abusive situation, and now the pandemic might have just amplified it to where now you're locked in the room with your demons, in a sense. So yeah, that was another thing that came to mind as Mom Sequoia was speaking.
Peace. Yes. Some things that I also noticed were how parents weren't used to their children being home all the time, and having to learn how to, manage them throughout the day. And actually, some, even saying, like, I wish you could, would go back to school, but not really wanting to, you know, uh, just deal with their children, with in a full day. And then others actually, as you said, Sequoia, taking advantage of that time and discovering new things, within the family. That's something that I recognize through the pandemic. Give thanks.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yeah, give thanks for the sharing. Very, very relevant points. Very relevant points. Um, Feel free, like I said, I don't want to hog the mic, so feel free if anybody else want to jump in and make a point or just add.
Yeah, I guess I'll add on.
Okay.
Peace, everyone. Good evening. Yeah, man. So yeah, loneliness in the pandemic. I think what I what I have picked up on is that there's been a decline um, over past few years with the pervasiveness of just so much digital communication that people have really, in particular younger people, have really foregone their cultivating of social skills. You know, just knowing how to, even not even just knowing how to talk, even knowing how to type a coherent message to another person. Like you see the quality of grammar and clear communication has really gone into the dumps. And I've seen that accelerate, exponentially throughout this time that we've been going through this experience. And a lot of the loneliness that people experience are a result of that. Not knowing how to properly socialize is a huge part. There's a difference between being a loner, and being lonely. I myself, I'm a loner, but I actually do possess social skills. So if I am in a place where I'm lonely, I know how to engage my social support. I know how to engage, people around me, or even to make friends if I so choose to. So I think, and I think this was brought up before, the experience has brought certain things out of people, and one of which, was really the highlighting that Some people don't know how to get out of the rut of loneliness because they don't know how to socialize. They don't know how to make friends, you know. And of course, the loneliness leads to deeper sicknesses like the chronic depression that was brought up earlier. Things like lack of sleep come from loneliness, and when there's a lack of sleep, then there's a myriad of things that happen after that, because now you're throwing your body chemistry off and your circadian rhythms off, and all of this is just from being lonely, so I would say through this event, this scientific event that we've all been experiencing, that the lack of social skills has really come to the fore. And it's important that everyone be able to recognize when their loneliness is a result of something temporary, or if it's a result of, I just don't know how to get along with people. I don't know how to engage in social settings. So as a result, unless people kind of force themselves into my life, or if friends are handed to me, like, and I'm just thinking like in terms of Anu, you know, I constantly am cultivating an environment where there's brotherhood and sisterhood constantly. And I know for some of the people involved, if I wasn't doing that, there would be no there would be no engagement between them. These are people who would not be friends, quote unquote, on the outside, you know. Um, so when that's not present, sometimes people don't realize, okay, I'm lonely, let me step it up. Let me put myself where there may be a greater possibility of social interaction. They just kind of devolve and dissolve down into this deep dark pit of lonely despair. So that's something I noticed just through this experience. Like it's increased. That issue of not being able to socialize.
Indeed, indeed. I have to definitely have to agree with you. I've noticed, yeah, prior to the pandemic, just with the, evolution of social media, has, inspired a lot of lack of, developing those social skills. Um, been replaced with um, likes and trying to and you know um, force feeding opinions and you know giving your social media getting your social media attention. So you know um, I definitely noticed that as well. And of course during the pandemic, even more so. So I certainly agree. And yeah, this when you don't have those skills to pull from, then yeah, what else can you do? You know what I mean? um the positive side of that is like, yeah, we all have the opportunity, especially in this day and age of knowledge being available. We have the opportunity to equip ourselves with those skills if we choose to do so. But that goes back to, are you willing and able to face those dark parts of yourself, and you know uh, feed yourself with those skills and knowledge, and the abilities to get through, you know um, to being more closely aligned with with Yah, and with your soul, and your mission, your purpose, what your actual intention on being here is. So feel free, if anyone else want to join in to the conversation, feel free. I'm not a mic hugger. I just say a little something and then pass it on.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, even just being here, going ahead and jumping on, and sharing, is me pushing myself to even be more, be more social. Um, because sometimes, I don't know, it's just, while I desire, that interaction, but there are also a lot of times where, I just feel like, I don't really want to share, or, you know, um, or just to, be vulnerable, so I can identify, or I would agree, or I would say I'm one of those, who, while I do know how to socialize, but at the same time, I find myself going inward, a lot. So that's why I'm even here, because I want to come out of that myself. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Certainly, well, you certainly are welcome here. You know, myself, included. This is an act of vulnerability. No matter how small or big it may be. It's a step in a positive direction. So you know, you are certainly welcome in the space. It's a safe space to share that vulnerability. So if go
I
ahead.
also think it's interesting relating to what Chief had said about making friends. And you don't really think about how many people we interact with based on, just based on proximity. If you go to school, or if you have a job, there are certain people that you get friendly with just because you interact with them on a daily basis. And I never really consciously made the distinction between making friends that way as opposed to just being able to speak to someone. You may be um, on the train together, or you may be walking down the street and you just say something interesting. Oh, I like your shirt, something interesting like that. Or just being friendly in general. You may actually help someone who's lonely, um, and whose loneliness didn't come from a pandemic. They just have trouble connecting with other people. You know, Sometimes that can be more uplifting than you realize. You're not just going out of your way to do it just to say I did it, but if it comes from a righteous and a natural place. It's like that person really has a cool shirt, you know. But something as simple as that, just reaching out to people, when um, you feel inspired to, can even make a difference. There's loneliness because of, like Chief had said, there's loneliness because of a temporary thing, like a pandemic. But a lot of people have like a pre-existing loneliness. It may be amplified, but it was always there.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I To add on to your point, yeah. So there's differences, in lifestyles, and differences in uh, culture. You know what I mean? That can create, um, you know, a distance. Um, but there's also like your lifestyle in itself, it mirrors your thought patterns, your habits. So sometimes your habits and your you don't you're just going about your life. You're doing your day-to-day activities, and sometimes people notice the difference. Like, oh, I notice you do something, you do this over here a little different than most people. you know Tell me about that. Why are you wearing that hat? Or why are you wearing, um you know why is she wearing that dress? Or why is your head covered? Or whatever the case may be. And we have that opportunity for an authentic connection, and to bring them you know um, into a new perspective, one in which maybe they hadn't been introduced to before, or maybe they have, and it never like explored it, the way they maybe wanted to, or didn't feel the need to or want to, at that time. So I know that and then there's the opposite. There's certain cultural differences and lifestyles that we do have, in which it's good to disconnect, from certain parties. I'll give an example. So I have relatives, in which we haven't seen each other in a while, and they pretty much just told me that we can't visit each other because they have the shot, and I'm unwilling to get the shot, so and they don't want to be at risk, you know what I mean? So that's a direct conflict, of cultural imperatives. So uh, for my health regimen and my health awareness, I'm going this route, and they're going a completely different route, in which I respect, their decision, but it puts us in a natural disconnect, if you will, so there's no way to even force that engagement, whereas before, because of how like convoluted American culture is, where everybody kind of do what they feel to a certain degree. There isn't they might not notice, so either party may not notice how different each other's lifestyles and culture is. So those are things that definitely are highlighted in both ways.
Right. I just wanted to. I was just thinking about what Master Antonio was talking about in terms of connecting with others. Even if you're just riding on a train, somewhere, or or doing something, and I do see importance in that. The gas station I go to, to get my gas, there's the person at the cashier. Um, over time, we were able to, connect and not have a lot of, long talk, but the other day I was, just to say, hey, how you doing? Oh, you losing weight? Are you doing something different? And she's like, wow, you noticed, and it was just such pleasant, conversation, and then there was another time, just to learn, about the fears that she has. She was just talking about the fears that she has, um, concerning the Ukraine Russian war, and and difficulty sleeping, and you just never know, what other people are going through, and so I do see the importance of in connecting, and and even bringing comfort to others who you may not even know. So yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, give thanks for sharing. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, something I just kind of wanted to put forth is just kind of building on an illustration that I said earlier, as we're kind of we're moving towards a time in which it's imperative to explore that relationship with our character, with our real self, our soul connection. you know it's always been important, but now it's becoming a crisis, to where you're being infringed upon, you're being forced to make a decision one way or another, on where you stand. you know um, so what I came to a conclusion on is, if we stop burning our hands, we can shine our light and let our wisdom be heard. So that was the correlation that I made with the poem that I created, A Million Voices. So until the next time, unless anyone has anything else they wanted to share.
Give thanks for your Clubhouse space. Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Give thanks for the support, and and coming and sharing, being a part of this experience, is very much appreciated. So
Peace.
tomorrow, there is another Clubhouse, by Chief Yuya. It is, I believe it's called Midday Motivation. Midday Motivation.
Affirmations.
Midday Affirmation. Thank you. Thank you for that help. So that is at noon Eastern time, I believe. So feel free to join and come in and listen and be a part of that. So there's we'll be on, and I'm not sure what the discussion is going to be, but I'm sure it's going to be intriguing and interesting, and full of wisdom. So till the next time, go ahead and join anulifeglobal.org. If you're interested in being sponsored, being sponsored in the Anu experience. And I think that's all the announcements that I can think of at this moment. So you enjoy the rest of your night. Peace to all.
Peace, Allah. Give thanks.
Peace.
Peace, everyone.
Peace.